Hi, everyone. So this is the industry panel, and I'm just going to introduce our speakers today. And since it can be like a close-knit gathering, you can ask questions, and I'll try to ask some over-ended, broad-ended questions, but feel free to just raise your hand and jump right in. So we have Matt from Malong, we have Hassan from Sela, and then we have Alik from Intel. And maybe you guys can introduce a little bit about yourselves and the company and the work that your company does.
Sure. So if you guys attended the earlier session, you may have already learned an introduction about myself and what I'm doing. But just in summary, it's a 4-year-old computer vision startup in China focused on primarily product recognition and retail. And I am from originally New York. I went to school here at BU, just around this area, and loving every day. So thank you.
Hi, so my name is Hassan. I'm CTO for Sela. We are a 1.5-year-old startup. Our kind of mission is to modernize the international development industry. So what it means is that we're creating the tools to connect beneficiaries with funders for infrastructure projects in the emerging markets. So kind of where AI fits in is that on one side you have voice interface that kind of call people on the ground to make sure that funded projects are actually happening. And we also kind of using satellite imagery to make sure that to create accountability loop for people who execute project. I'm an MIT alum. I graduated like a year and a half ago. And kind of my industry perspective come from both like having intern at Uber ATG in the perception team and now being CTO for Sela. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Alec. I work for Intel, especially the Intel AI Academy, and my job is to help you guys all get started and do great things with AI. We make the chips to make it possible, so we want to provide the right tools and the right resources for you guys to build great products in AI. So 2016 was actually a magical year for both Matt and I. 2016, he founded Malong, and then 2016, at Northwestern, I actually booted up their AI program within the data science program. So I've been teaching deep learning for the last 3 years there. And now I bring that experience to Intel, hopefully bringing it to lots of schools around the world. One thing I do want to say is that I think, a lot of times when you get started in AI, it's very daunting at first. And for me, I did a PhD in security. I had nothing to do with AI until 2011. I basically started poking around, started building models, making all the mistakes, one at a time. And eventually, I found myself a faculty position at Northwestern. So you don't need a lot of experience to get started. You just need a heart and courage and, set your mind on something, you'll make it there eventually.
Great. So I guess one question that even I had was what do you think the industry in machine learning or applications of machine intelligence looks like in the next 5 to 10 years? As in, what do you think will be the requirement for data scientists and machine learning engineers? And do you think we are doing enough, or we actually need to produce more students who are well versed in machine intelligence? So yeah, feel free to answer.
Okay, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So in the horizon of 5 to 10 years, I think a few computer vision or AI applications are going to start to see themselves into the real world. One of them, I think we're going to see, it's healthcare. And so in terms of suggestion, healthcare is an area. It's actually, I think, one of the ultimate applications of AI to improve, people's lives, save people's lives. I mean, what better can you imagine? And why I think it's going to be 5 to 10 years is simply because, well, the research has started now, but there's this FDA approval process and lots of clinical studies. It just takes years and years to get going. I think we're also going to see in 5 to 10 years more of travel, of the auto drive. We're going to start to see more of that. I think the reason why that's on the 5 to 10 year horizon is just because of regulation. And it's just, there's going to be a lot of testing before we get to that stage. So what can data scientists do now is look towards applications like that will start emerging over the next 5 to 10 years and start to get ready to participate. So, thanks.
Yeah. What about how is Intel AI Academy, what is the vision for Intel AI Academy to help people to get prepared for this?
I think Intel AI Academy provides a starting point. We provide a lot of lecture materials. We provide student workshops. We really provide a sense of community. And, I was just talking to people this morning, and asking them, what's the hardest part about getting started in AI? There's really two things. One of them is getting the infrastructure, just getting a desktop or, getting access to a cluster to even train an AI model is a daunting task. Oftentimes these models are very large and it requires a very large node to actually even do that. And the second thing is a sense of community. I heard this many years ago when I went to an Entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley. And what the founder said is that one of the biggest predictors of success in having a startup is just access to the right people that have experience in making startups. And I think for machine learning, it's very much the same way. Getting access to very well qualified people, people that are very patient and very helpful, and getting people get started and solving hard problems. I think that's probably some of the most important things that we can do for evangelizing AI. So in the AI Academy, we have an AI Developer Cloud where you can get free 30-day access to use 96 gigabyte machines with 12 cores of Xeon with Intel AI accelerators to get your models trained. And also we provide a sense of community. So we have a Dev Mesh program where students can join and evangelize their projects online so that other people can join in and participate as well.
Yeah, so I guess when I think about the growth of this space in the 5-10 years, you kind of have to look at the areas where there's already a lot of data that's being gathered. So, and where gathering that data will become kind of easier. So, like one example that, for example, hasn't been discussed is things around genetics and bioinformatics, because DNA, the cost of all these DNA tests has been kind of sharply declining, and when you combine that with the larger trend, which is people are living longer, you kind of see that there's a lot of value to get from kind of understanding okay, what makes a person healthy, what makes people live longer, what are some of these predictors that we can have. So you kind of have to look at the areas where there is you can see 5-10 years, if people tell me that no more, there will be less genetic data gathered than now, I would, I'll be skeptical about that. So kind of take a look at what are these hard demographic trends where there's a lot of data that's being gathered, and where analyzing it will provide a lot of value. Another one that I'm also excited about is actually there's been kind of a recent trend, I would say more this year, of these AI for social good and AI for Earth. So I think there will be far more application of this technology around the environmental space. Because actually, with a lot of the satellite imagery, you can kind of estimate the area of forestation, deforestation, and some of these things. And we kind of in an environment where the rhetoric has been a lot more vocal about the need to help for climate change. So I think that's also an area where I'm sure there'll be a lot more excitement about that. And you can kind of see the hints of that with the recent Google AI for Social Good Challenge and Microsoft AI for Earth grant. These are very recent, so I think that's something that's gonna also grow over the next 5-10 years. Yeah.
Great, that sounds good. I actually didn't know about the Google Social Good Challenge and the Microsoft Earth, so I learned something new. Another question is just from your own experience, what are the challenges involved when you go to found this company? How do you even start getting investors? How do you even argue to them that it's worth doing? Because as I was speaking with Matt earlier, and with AI, you get the returns after some longer time. It's a longer time investment, but there are a lot of companies which just want really fast returns, right? So if you could talk about your experience in basically starting the company and how you dealt with it, it'd be great.
Okay, thanks. So it's the difficulty in starting any company is actually establishing your differentiation with others. And so, I remember just at the beginning, it was really daunting, and my co-founder and I were saying, do we really have something here? Is this something we really want to bet our whole life on? I mean, we're leaving really good jobs for what? And what is our families going to think of this? And so what we did was our path, and maybe this can inspire others, is we just right away entered competitions, the hardest possible competitions, just to put ourselves to the maximum test. And if we didn't do well right away, we're just going to go back to work. And so in China, everything about China is big. And so we entered the hardest one in China in 2014 is the National Entrepreneurship Competition, which is 10,000 companies competing with each other.
Whoa.
And so we just said, all right, let's just throw the hat in there and see what we can do. And it took a bunch of rounds and everything like that. And at the end of it, we got second place in China.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
we're like,
that's really remarkable.
well, whoa, maybe something here. And so, and that sort of kicked things off. And then that attracted some investors because, oh, you've scored very high on the challenge. Okay, that's some differentiation. And then sort of one thing led to the other. We were able to get investment, and then we were able to have the resources to do some really good projects and hire people, and then it just went from there. And so my advice is just put yourself to the test as early as possible, and get out of your comfort zone. So thank you.
Yeah, so my view on that is in terms of, like, the way I look at kind of the anatomy of, like, AI startups, this is, like, there's way more than that. But you can kind of see one where, like, they are AI first, which is, like, basically the product would not work if you don't have, like, computer vision. Or the product would not work if your, like, natural language like models are not good. And then you have the other one where the products are kind of improved or augmented by AI, or like AI basically increase your value proposition. So on the first side, you kind of have to think about, like, what's your competitive advantage. And what I mean by that is that if you're an AI startup, really like algorithm and like models or libraries may not be your competitive advantage actually. It's like your understanding of the customer. Because when you think about what Google can do, they might be able to release generative adversarial network library or some like neurostyle model or some neurostyle paper. But if you want to take that kind of product to, say, the movie industry for like special effects, right? Your like competitive advantage as a startup is that you'll be able to spend way more time with your customer. And so things that will help you is evidence that you understand and have access to the customer that like needs your product. And that's kind of how I would think about what can allow the startups to differentiate. It's basically like prove that you know your customer better than most people, and you can spend time with your customer better than most people. So for example, in our case, we actually flew and have an office in West Africa, Lagos, where we actually went and run pilot to show to a lot of the people, okay, we can sure like sit in Silicon Valley, but we also have the ability to go to the last mile and test our assumption at the last mile and show that, okay, we're able to actually follow through end-to-end on what we want to deliver. And that's something where you can say, like that's something that the startup by default is not able to do. And when you're able to prove that you have access to your customer or you understand their problem better than most people, these are the things that can kind of help you like stand out. But definitely fundraising is like always a challenge. It's like there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of companies. And, like, I think the view on student is like, oh, it's kind of like an interview, like job interview. You go, you present, and you get money. No, you actually have to develop relationship with investor for a while, even before you even want to get started. So, for example, when I was like in my junior year, I like started to go more at VC events and things like that, because you actually have to often develop relationship with investor for like them to be like comfortable backing you. So that's always something to keep in mind. It's not like kind of like a job interview, you show up and you get money. Often you have to build relationship with the investor for like a long time before they're comfortable. And the thing is that once they're comfortable, they will introduce you to their networks and like things will get easier. But there's definitely a kind of uphill battle at the beginning to build these relationships. So yeah.
I would agree with the first two speakers. I think a lot of it is really around what's the customer value proposition and how to differentiate. So a lot of things, have actually been tried before. It's not the first time we did retail. It's not the first time, that these things have been deployed at scale. It's just that things have failed before using older machine learning techniques. And I think, the success of the newer deep learning and AI techniques really enables things that weren't possible before. And the other thing that I would say as an enabler is really the hardware. A lot of things just took too much computational power in the cloud and wasn't really available at the edge. So having lower power hardware that can be deployed at scale really makes a lot of these things possible. So these are disruptors that I think companies can leverage to really gain a foothold in that kind of a space.
So actually, I would like to add something else. So back to the AI first product. So often it's actually kind of there's been project where they were AI first, and for me actually it just failed. So an example with a friend, junior year, summer of junior year, we wanted to work on that concept prerequisite mapping. So basically, given two concepts like dot product and vector, like do you need to understand A to understand B? And when your whole company just like bets on like how good my model is, people who have like experience training model are like, okay, if you have like a 0.85 F1 score, well, that's it. I mean, like if your core product depends on that, and you cannot go beyond 0.85 F1 score, well, you kind of just done, right? So like think about like market and technology risk, and like make sure that like you don't have both combined, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
A little bit more about entrepreneurship at Intel and like the cultures there.
So I'm actually somewhat new to Intel. I've only been there for 6 months, so I'm not too sure about the entrepreneurship culture there. But what I will say is that Intel has an Intel Capital arm, and we do invest in companies. And I also work with this program called Intel AI Builders, and oftentimes we seek smaller companies, ISVs and startups, and we work with them to optimize their AI products, get them working on Intel, and sometimes Intel Capital takes notice and works with them. So some companies I think do very well with that.
So it's called Intel AI Builders?
That is correct, yeah.
All right, moving on. So there has been a lot of talk about privacy and security implications. And also like Hassan, since you are working with like funds and governments and local people, there is like lots of, like, I think there might be lots of like maybe resistance from governments or like policies. So, and how do you all plan to deal with this like privacy policies and making sure that people's privacy is not infringed? Or like maybe if the government introduces a new rule in the future, how will your companies accommodate for that? Yeah, if you could talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, so good question, because actually I don't know if I was saying, but I'm actually flying from Europe right now, where the requirements around GDPR have been kind of put in practice, and like things around privacy is definitely like a question that's coming up a lot more. And so like that's why when you think about what data you need, you kind of have to like make sure that like if like things around opting in and having, and like think about what you gather by default, right? So like in our case, things around government. So actually the advantage of that is like a lot of these are public projects and public funds. So really what when you get into sensitivity is when you want to go as far as saying, okay, did workers show up to work today? Did who show up to work today? And things like that. And that's actually something that we've been thinking about, because our whole point is about transparency. So like how far do you go into what data you gather is like something. So for example, a lot of the thing we do is that we don't control too much the process, but we control the outcomes. So for example, we will not like go as far as saying, okay, which worker showed up to work today, which worker didn't show up. It will be like more like, okay, is this building present, right? Because that's something that can be observed without infringing on the privacy of the actors involved, and it will be more like controlling the outcome of the project versus like who showed up to work and things like that. But definitely another thing as well around anonymity is actually in some case like we do want to like know who made a claim, but not necessarily make it available to other people for a case of retaliation. So that's definitely something we think about. I don't think we've like solved everything, but the first step we're taking in that process is kind of controlling more the outcomes rather than the like process, which will include, say, take pictures of everybody that chose to work and things like that. Yeah.
So for our products, how we avoid these type of sensitive issues is we have actually a very simple approach.
Okay.
We just simply don't do any of that. Anything related to, for example, personal identifiable information, face recognition, any of the sensitive geopolitical type of topics, we just set a firewall with that. We do AI for product recognition, just things, right? And so we do this actually as a strategy, because as a computer vision company, it's somewhat low-hanging fruit to do face recognition. And that's actually a really good business, surveillance, especially in China. But we realized that that would limit our future, because if you start getting involved with that, it's going to possibly cause issues. So we just simply firewall that. We have nothing to do with it, and that's our strategy, to stick to products and work on retail and manufacturing and so on.
I see. Is that a long-term goal or just for the time?
Well, we have an emerging research area on medical, and so for medical, the way we've approached that is, at this stage, it's more of just, it's research.
Right.
But in terms of our commercial products, we're going to be focusing on more AI for things rather than AI for people.
I'll give you guys a little bit of a flip side of the equation here. So at Intel, we don't really deal with storing the data or collecting it in that manner, but we do enable the technologies that allow you to work on sensitive data like GDPR, HIPAA, and the like. Basically, such data has to be protected. You encrypt it, and we certainly accelerate the encryption side of things. Another difficult thing is that, being a data science professor, oftentimes you use multiple tools, right? You have a data cleanup tool, and then after you clean it up, you load it into a separate tool to do, the training, and then after that, you just have a separate tool to do inference, right? So basically, that lifetime of data from, collection to cleanup to training to inference, oftentimes the tags with the data gets lost. In working with some researchers at Berkeley, where they have a big framework for distributed machine learning, you're able to keep those tags in the framework itself, so that you can keep track of, what came from what kind of data that could have been protected under what kind of privacy law in what kind of domain. So we're thinking about, privacy at the data center level. What kinds of technology, both hardware and software, do you need to enable such privacy?
That's great. So I think we will be closing up soon. So does anybody have questions, or do you want to? Yeah, go on.
Hassan, this is for you. I've actually never met somebody who's doing AI for the international development area. So I'd like you to talk a little bit more about what are the potential applications of AI in international development, and what do you see as challenges?
Good question. So actually, I wrote an essay on why it's been difficult for these cutting-edge technologies to be applied in this space. Is actually one of the reasons is that these are more public sector things, and a lot of the public sector often kind of falls behind in terms of technology adoption, just because one of the incentive, when you in the startup world, you either have B2B or B2C. Like government is just not even in the picture, because it's the kind of attitude is that they're bad customer, they're slow, which is actually true, by the way. And but one of the things that kind of changed a bit the landscape recently was the combined revolution on blockchain and machine intelligence. So it made these people aware, okay, there is this thing that will improve a lot of our core processes, but we don't have the means to actually implement them. And we kind of need to partner with technologists. And some of these things took the form of conference, forums, working groups, workshop with startups, where people are okay, this is kind of some of our problems and we need help. So, and now back to answering your question. So the big thing right now at the UN and World Bank is this sustainable development goals in 2030. And one of the main challenge is, okay, so first of all, how do you kind of keep track of the impact and the needs in terms of all these goals? So right, which cities are growing the most, which actors are efficient at actually executing, and how do you keep track of all these projects? So one area is around the use for satellite for urban planning. For urban planning purpose, kind of measuring the growth of the cities, and just anything that's really about how do these cities organize and grow and things like that. That's like one thing that's gonna be big. The second one is when you think about chatbot and voice interface, they allow you to have a much closer connection to the beneficiaries than before. So you can start kind of like asking a lot of questions and process them in a way that was not possible before. You can start kind of asking like, okay, what should be the priorities in your areas? What are the needs? Like we funded this like a year ago, like what happened? And when you program a lot of this interaction by just, having a bot asking someone, asking and then answering, and you can visualize a lot of their answers, it creates this like tighter feedback loop between beneficiaries and the institutions. And often there's been, and it's still true, this notion of like there's a gap between, say, Washington or New York and then like Latin America or Sub-Saharan Africa where these projects are implemented. And now with these like some of these tools, you can start closing that gap a bit. You can literally even imagine a group chat where you have on one side the beneficiaries and on the other side the funders, and they're conversing. So that's kind of like the view, and that makes it easier to have accountability and things like that. So some of the factors which are like still making it difficult is that you asking these like organizations to kind of change their patterns, and large organizations are not really good at that. So that's why like even if the technology is kind of ready now, you probably take like many years before the process are changed, and you would start with like a pilot here, a pilot there, then okay, it seems actually helpful, and we're gonna grow, and slowly, and it would take a lot of like actually like convincing for these things. But otherwise, these are kind of some of the possibilities right now. Yeah.
So there's been a lot of talk about AI replacing jobs. So there are arguments in both sides saying that there was the Industrial Revolution and that created a lot of new jobs. But then again, there's the flip side where it's like, yes, AI is taking over the jobs that it's created, but it's not like actually creating new jobs. It's just that whatever human beings did can be automated. So what's your view on this aspect? And what do you think, or like, what do you think the society or like governments should do to address this problem?
So I'll say for certain, teaching data science students at Northwestern, it's certainly creating jobs. In fact, there's too many companies that want to hire our students. But on the other hand, I think that, a lot of times, during these revolutions, things are made more efficient. Oftentimes, the things that are automated are, the manual things that, people don't want to do anyhow. So it's just kind of moving jobs up the value chain.
Yeah, I have two views on that. One from having worked in the kind of autonomous vehicle like space, and then now in this new one, and I also actually advise like AgTech startups. So actually I have three perspectives. So the first one is, so for things like, which is a bit more kind of the classic view, for things like autonomous driving and things like that, you definitely see like a lot of people agree that like in the future, like it seems that like the job of like truck drivers and like just drivers in general from now to 2035, 2050, even if you might like the destruction might not happen like right now, you would probably not imagine that as like a growing like career like thing. Like I don't think you're gonna see like, oh, there's a boom in like trucking. What will probably like kind of slowly happen is like the truck driver may not need to be like awake all the time, and like you only need maybe like out of a 12-hour shift, like there may be like 1 hour in the city, like 10 hours on the highway where you can just kind of sleep, and then another hour where he needs to like maneuver again and like put shipment out. So definitely this view is kind of like there needs to be kind of incentives and programs to enable people to like get re-educated. And one of the problem actually, if you look at a lot of the interviews of this community, is kind of like there's often a denial. I recently read like a play called Sweat by Linotage, and it's about like the effect, not even on automation, but just on treaties like NAFTA, where some companies could move some like machines just down to Mexico, where labor was like 5x or 6x cheaper. And often in a lot of these communities, there's been kind of denial that it would happen because people were so used to like, oh yeah, my father worked at like this factory, like I work at this factory and that's my career, and so like that makes this conversation actually a bit harder because and I think there's been also recent research on the same thing is kind of happening with truck driver, where there's a denial actually that like the jobs will be taken away. So on that side, it's both a mix of education and creating the incentives. One of the cool thing actually I thought about for that, sorry if I take a long, but is one of the problem with the way we talk about automation is it's literally a zero-sum game between companies and the driver. But what if you could suddenly have the autonomous vehicle and robots become assets? So what I mean by asset, it's like imagine if you own like 0.1 autonomous vehicle, right? And then you would make money from actually the vehicle picking up people and like it becomes kind of like an asset class. And it makes money for you. So then it would actually change the relationship people have with automation. Because right now, like, if you're like, say a driver and like your job is taken away by the machines, really what people aren't afraid is not their job being taken away, it's their source of income, right? But if there's a program where you can earn like a percentage of the income derived from that like machine, then your relationship to automation kind of change. Because, oh, now suddenly like this robot is making money for me. It's like the greatest thing ever. More automation, please, because like there's kind of like a market of this kind of asset class that I can, I can buy like a Toyota in like Pittsburgh today. I can like buy, I mean not buy, but like, you know what I mean, like 0.1, like only 1.1 of like a Toyota in Pittsburgh today, another one in like Tokyo and things like that, right? The other one on the job creation side, so like for example, in one of the company advised, the notion of a drone pilot that would go and surveil like agricultural field, it's actually a new job. Like there's been kind of creation of new job with these people that go on some agricultural fields and fly over drones and to like measure crop health and things like that. So there's been kind of creation of like a new job. And even on the other side, the work of a community reporter that reports about project in their community, that's also a new job. So there's kind of like, it's definitely more nuanced than like, oh, will all jobs go away, will there be new jobs? It's like very industry specific, but even within the industry specific, you kind of have to look at like what's the setup around how income are generated and distributed. And you can make some adjustment that would make the relationship with automation much less adverse. And I think that's a conversation that's probably not happening enough because people are kind of in the view of, okay, the truck driver will lose their job and that's it. But what if, again, they could own a percentage of this truck that go around and make money? And instead of having the kind of capital concentrated in the large technology companies, which are like maybe employ like 10,000 people and have like millions of workers out, rather than saying, oh, like you will own a piece of that asset now that works for you. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think I agree with all the previous speakers. Just one quick thing to add is just a data point. If you want to search for it, about 3 months ago, PwC did a report on this. They estimated they did an analysis of the job displacement problem. Actually, they came up with a really surprising result that there will be more jobs created than lost. And so that's, and it's, if you take a look into it, it's interesting what jobs are going to be created. It's going to be more service-based jobs, jobs which involve human beings. So yeah, that's just something as a reference to look up.
Great. So we'll be closing the panel soon. If you guys have any closing remarks or if you want to share something, go ahead.
Yeah, just, I think everyone who is attending the session and who's attending this event, you guys are on the right track. This is a very important era we're in. The AI era is going to change everything. And we're actually just at the beginning of it. It looks like it's been a long journey, but actually I think in terms of impact, things are going to start changing really soon. And welcome you all to speak with me as well offline and check out our stuff, and we can talk more later. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, so similar to him, I think the students here are kind of, doing the right thing, asking this question, because these are questions that will become kind of increasingly important for, our future, and it's good to kind of be at the forefront, and that's kind of a privilege, actually, you have, that this kind of ecosystem does not always exist, like, everywhere, so it's definitely take advantage of this to be at the forefront of this question, because like these are things that will come up and again. And I think like the other thing is kind of find your niche. It would take some time to kind of like find what you really enjoy, but kind of find your strengths and the kind of question you want to answer, because there is like question to be answered for pretty much everybody, be it someone you like super theoretic, or someone that cares about the social cause, or if you're like someone that care about more the macroeconomy, or someone that care about the history of technology. There is actually a lot of action going on, and kind of find, iteratively where you belong. And the other thing is that it's not like fixed, right? Like I think like we moving much more towards like a world where, there'll be a lot more flexibility in terms of how you think about your career. So don't worry too much about like, planning like what the 5-10 years would look like, because I mean, you even saw with him, he moved from security to AI. Like, maybe there'll be like another move where we all move from AI to like something else. So like, kind of just relax and like kind of enjoy the journey, because like it's definitely much more chaotic than like the linear view of like, yeah.
So I will say that I'm used to teaching master's students, and every year that I've taught for the last 3 years, there's more and more undergrad involvement, and usually the undergrads are actually more gung-ho and more enthusiastic about the AI. So I would say that, don't get intimidated by the mathematics, don't get intimidated by all the crazy papers that, you have trouble reading. I think, just find a problem that you're really genuinely interested in, and try all the techniques that you can. Many of them are actually even classical machine learning, not even deep learning. You'll find more often than not the classical machine learning algorithms actually do fairly well, not just the latest fanciest algorithm that you see. As an homage to Professor Shavlik here, who's been teaching for 30 years, there's always a new king of the hill, in AI. So it may not be deep learning in 10 years, who knows what it may be, but I would just, keep an open mind. Go after the problems that are worth solving, self-driving cars, automating things. Don't worry so much about the underlying technology, be open to try new things and see what works. In my career, I don't think that there's been any one silver bullet over the last, many years that has solved every single problem out there. So I wouldn't expect this to be the silver bullet either, even though it's probably the closest that I've ever seen, though, to be honest.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks to all of the attendees who came here and for this industry panel. I myself learned a lot from like hearing you guys. So yeah, thanks and best of luck with your endeavors.